Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on this July 24th, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. This is Issues Part 2. We're continuing what was not completed yesterday, and there was an existing list for today. Your online agenda is correct. Commissioner West is out of the office today. All other commissioners are present. First item, July 2024 Excessive Heat Recap. We have staff from Disaster Management and Health, Housing, Human Services to update you on our response to the recent July heat. Jamie Poole is Disaster Management Manager, and Adam Brown is Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Good morning. So again, Jamie Poole, I'm the Deputy Disaster Manager with Clackamas County Disaster Management. On July 2nd, the National Weather Service issued an excessive heat warning for July 4th through July 7th. The weather forecast predicted temperatures exceeding 100 degrees, with overnight temperatures remaining above 65 degrees. The extended forecast indicated that this excessive heat would likely continue through July 12th, potentially rivaling the historic June 2021 heat wave. This combination of excessive heat, overnight high temperatures, and prolonged duration presented significant health risks to many community members. Disaster Management and Health, Housing, and Human Services began monitoring the weather and preparing to activate and deploy resources to the community. H3S coordinated a response among its programs and partner agencies to ensure the availability of cool spaces and began outreach to vulnerable populations. Both H3S and Disaster Management worked with Public and Government Affairs to update information on the county's website and social media platforms. On July 3rd at 8 a.m., the county's Emergency Operations Center activated to a Level 2 partial activation. This included Disaster Management, Health, Housing, Human Services, Public and Government Affairs, and other county departments to plan and coordinate the response to upcoming heat wave and anticipate community needs. Coordination with intra-county jurisdictional and agency response partners was also initiated. The EOC objectives were to ensure Clackamas community members, particularly those vulnerable to excessive heat, have access to cool spaces and other resources, to coordinate with city and special district partners for any resources needed for excessive heat response, and to inform the community about resources to stay cool and the potential dangers of the excessive heat. The Emergency Operations Center began to work to achieve these objectives by working with contracted providers to establish a congregate overnight shelter for days of high heat, as well as non-congregate cooling for those with specific needs. Coordinating with city and special district partners to inventory and post cooling center locations and other resources on the county website. We translated information for distribution, and assembling resource and cooling kits for distribution by outreach teams, requesting and receiving support from the Oregon Department of Human Services for a call center, which is 211 Info, and transportation support for vulnerable populations, hosting a call with city and special district partners to discuss the response and identify gaps, developing a schedule for posting heat preparedness information and cooling resources, and communicating with the media, including responding to information and interview requests. On July 4th, the Emergency Operations Center transitioned to a Level 1 monitoring and assessment and remained at that level through the extended holiday weekend. In preparation of this event, County Administration authorized the use of the Development Services Building, the DSB, as an alternate cooling site if additional capacity was needed. Equipment, plans, and permits were implemented during this initial phase to be able to open quickly if needed. During that weekend, H3S staff and its partners ensured community members were aware of and had access to cooling resources. Cooling centers throughout the county had significant capacity to support those needing daytime or overnight resources, therefore the DSB was not activated. City and special district partners extended hours for cooling resources and in some cases canceled outdoor activities. Messages promoting access to cooling resources and encouraging community members to check websites for any additional cancellations or modifications of community programs was shared. On Monday, July 8th, the Emergency Operations Center transitioned back to Level 2 partial activation to assess the situation and determine if objectives needed to be modified or additional resources were required. At this time, the weather forecast indicated the heat wave would end on July 10th. Though temperatures would remain above seasonal average in the mid to high 90s for the next 7 to 10 days. H3S staff and its partners continued to meet the cooling needs of community members, ensuring ample capacity for those seeking a cool place. On July 8th, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District canceled several summer camps and outdoor activities due to the excessive heat. However, the morning summer camps, programs, and activities at their facilities continued as scheduled. At the end of the business day on July 8th, the EOC transitioned back down to a Level 1 monitoring and assessment and remained at that level throughout the duration of the incident. And then the EOC was deactivated on July 10th. Per the Chief Meteorological Death Investigator, Clackamas County has had no suspected heat-related deaths. There was a Clackamas County resident that died in Multnomah County as a suspected heat-related death. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Adam Brown with H3S to provide a little bit more information on their programs.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Can you tell more about the death? Because it was reported there was one death in Clackamas County. You're saying that was not the case?
No, that individual was brought by ambulance into Multnomah County, and then in doctor's care passed away there in Multnomah County.
But it was a resident of Clackamas County.
Resident
So
of
there was one death of a Clackamas County resident. Do we know any details of the reasons why? But it was heat related.
Well, no, it's suspected. So
Okay.
there could be multiple reasons that a person has died. So they're looking at it as suspected, and there'll have to be more information, or the medical examiner's office will have to do more to find out the actual cause, which could be weeks to actually determine.
Got it. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. So Jamie did a really good job at the overview, and I'll talk a little bit about our homeless services program specifically. But first, I think the most important takeaway for you all is that I think we're doing a pretty good job as a community right now in responding to severe weather events. We did a really good job over the winter, right, in January and February when we had that severe weather. And we deployed a similar model for this one. In fact, we said, wow, we did really well in January and February, and here's why. Because we did some after-action review of that and had some learnings that we took away. And we said, let's do that same model. And that model basically is, let's not wait. Let's look at the forecast, but we know that in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of variability around our forecast, right? Our severe weather doesn't always materialize here. But we're not going to wait for that weather to materialize before we start taking action, because by the time the weather materializes, then we're behind. So we did the same thing here, Tuesday, the 2nd. We're looking at the forecast. It looked pretty bad. So we all got together. H3S is working really well with disaster management right now, and so I think we were really prepared. We got our outreach teams out on the streets, getting people water, getting people cooling kits, giving them access to information about where they can go, establishing individual plans. I talked with our partners at Father's Heart and Love One and Ant Farm, and they said, Adam, these people aren't unknown to us. We know them. We know their names. We know where they stay, and we proactively reach out to them. We're working every day to try to get them inside and get them access to safe, stable housing. But we know folks are at different place of readiness, but that doesn't mean they're not unknown to us or that their needs are unknown to us. So we're proactive. And so Father's Heart, Love One, Ant Farm, they were responsible for our outreach effort. Father's Heart was operating their cooling center in downtown Oregon City. They opened for the first time their weather really started materializing on Friday. Friday the 5th, and they opened overnight Friday, and then were open 24 hours a day through the night of Tuesday the 9th. They had about 100 people there each day during the day, with a peak of 108 on Tuesday. The nighttime average was about 40 people there with a peak of 50 also on Tuesday. We had around 30 additional people in hotels. So similar to the model we deployed over the winter, some of that outreach effort is figuring out who's the most vulnerable, who do we need to get into a hotel, and how do we do that on the front end to free up room in the rest of our system so that we can handle walk-in folks as the weather materializes and people need relief in the moment. So we did that same thing. And then, in talking with Father's Heart and Love One, they said, this is an emergency. It's certainly an emergency, but it doesn't feel chaotic. It feels really well organized. So and I was taking calls over the weekend, and I have to say, it felt that way to me too. I was anxious because it's an emergency event, but that was just my anticipatory anxiety. It wasn't a function of what was actually happening in the moment. So we were prepared. We were prepared for overflow at DSB. We worked with our city partners in Oregon City to permit it. They were really responsive. And so we were ready, and I think we functioned really effectively.
Thank you for those reports. It's always a concern. In past heat-related events, we have not been so lucky, and you know what I mean. But, we learn and we go forward and do the best we can, and I really want to thank you folks for engaging, initiating, and, activating the EOC when you needed to be. I think what's on minds of everybody now, including myself, is a wildfire situation. Our eastern part of the state is experiencing fires, historic fires they've never seen before. And in Clackamas County, knock on wood, we have not had that yet. However, I anticipate that will not stand. And if I can say anything to anybody out there, it's human behavior that causes a lot of these situations to happen. Just because you think you have the right to have a campfire because you rented a space on state lands or federal lands, those are not permitted on many of them. You may think you have the right to set off fireworks because in many areas they are not banned, but I will say this, no one has the right to have a fire or fireworks that sets afire a large conflagration that burns people's houses down and kills livestock. You do not have that right to do that. So I'm going to be very stern on that going forward. I know that, Jamie, you will activate the EOC in the event it should happen. We have some new technology in Clackamas County that can help us spot that, and I'm prepared to talk about that today. I have some really good information on what other agencies are doing in Clackamas County. But I want to thank you for your attentiveness. The board was on recess during most of this, but we got your emails, and I know I read the emails from Daniel. I was very appreciative of what was going on with that. Commissioners, do you have any other comments?
Just other than good job and keep up the good work, and I know we're always refining our efforts, and your after-action work and so forth is, demonstrates how to do the job better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yeah, I'd just say, Emily and Adam, please thank everybody you work with for a job well done, and worked out really well. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do want to mention, there are a couple of really key staff in H3S, but I have to shout out to Jamie and Daniel. Their leadership in the EOC is awesome. But we have a department operations center now in H3S, and we have a couple key staff that are leading that. And that's Bill Conway in our public health division, Stephanie Coleman in our social services division. They step up, and they are ready. They thrive in this kind of situation. Halinda Chenault in our housing and community development division oversees our outreach teams. She was ready. Teresa Christofferson in social services division was taking calls and getting people into hotels. So shout out to those staff. They do a great job.
Thank you. I'm happy to have really good people working at Clackamas County to do this. Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, and Jamie?
Oh, Chair, so may I just real quick, you're going to talk about the technology. Is that the Pano cameras? Just a quick note that one of our staff that was on a duty officer assignment the other night actually spotted one of those and called it into our dispatch center, and it was a not legal fire, like burning fire, so.
Not a legal fire by humans.
That was taken care of, and proud of her for stepping up and making
Yeah,
sure
I
that it
can't
got
wait
in.
to talk. I've known about the technology for over a year, and I have mentioned it, but I have some wonderful substantiation here that's happening, for instance, in California, that they're using it. Thank you, Jamie.
All right,
Terry,
thank
what's
you.
next?
Next is a recap of what happened with the Metro Supportive Housing Services discussion at Metro. This also happened during your recess. While we emailed you, we wanted to give you a verbal update as well. Emily Klepper, Policy Advisor from the Board's office, and Adam Brown, again, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services, will provide you the verbal recap. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Emily Klepper, Senior Policy Advisor. Nice to see you. Welcome back.
Welcome.
Before you left for recess, Adam and I were before you, and we gave you a brief update about what's been going on with Metro and their look into possible changes to the Supportive Housing Services program. You directed staff to send a letter, which we did on your behalf. You were one of only 2 or 3 agencies who decided to weigh in before the COO's recommendations. So on July 9th, during your recess, the Metro COO, Marisa Madrigal, did go before the Metro Council, presented her final report and recommendations, about 50 pages. You can find it online, but I think I also emailed it to you as well. No surprises there. We've talked about this. She reflected back to the council that they, excuse me, wanted to continue engaging with the local jurisdictions like cities, that they were considering or asking the council to consider streamlining governance, asking the council to consider indexing or some kind of tax reduction for this income tax, and then also suggested possible changes to the IGA. This is the 2-party agreements that Metro has with each of the counties. So one of the things that came out of that conversation, though, I emailed you throughout the recess some of these updates, but I'm giving you this verbally too. But one of the things that came out of that conversation was a desire to move the consideration of a ballot measure from this November to May, which was one of your specific asks. Well, let me back up. That wasn't a specific ask. It was more a consideration, like, please don't do this in this timeline. But they did decide to move, at least considering looking at May 25. So that interaction happened. No formal decisions seemed to be made in that interaction with the COO and the Metro Council. Looking ahead at the calendar, they had set aside July 25th and August 1st as public hearing days if they were to move forward with a November timeline for the measure. They've since changed those into work sessions where they're going to be working with the council to codify their desires. What are the top priorities if we're looking at changing the program? What are the top priorities? What does the council want staff to work on? So they'll use those 2 dates to put something in writing. Hopefully we'll develop a work plan for staff and roll that out with you all. They did express an interest, including President Peterson, in engaging in more elected to elected conversations about this particular issue. And as they kind of move forward, making sure to bring the jurisdictions along. Adam and I, of course, are engaged. We're paying attention. We're talking to our colleagues in the counties and with Metro. But that is the update that I have for you right now. Happy to take any questions.
Adam, you have any additional information?
Nothing more to add. Thank you.
I know Commissioner Savas, your light is on, but I have some new information I'd like to present first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
During the break, I had a conversation with President Peterson regarding this, and then since then with the tri-chairs. I am hesitant to share some of this information because I don't have the details or the numbers that you desire. Okay? And what Lynn Peterson said was this. She is not happy with the rollout from Metro staff on what they're trying to do with the SHS redo, whatever you want to call it. And she presented to me privately, as she presented to the other two chairs privately, and I confirmed this, that any further discussions on this will go through Lynn Peterson and the tri-chairs. And she's setting aside, I think, further negotiation on this. And there's some things that she wants to do. I like some of the things that she wants to do, but, you know, as I say, devil's in the details. You know of the Tri-County Planning Body and the Metro Oversight Committee. Those are committees that have been created by Metro that are hugely cumbersome and ineffective. People are sitting at the table that haven't the faintest idea how to deliver services. They read the newspaper, they show up and say, oh, counties, you're doing a really bad job, and they're not looking at our data. And it's been difficult. All tri-chairs, all of our chairs have ceased going to the meetings because they are hours and hours and hours and nothing gets done. President Peterson is desiring to extinguish those meetings and instead form a governing body similar to JPAC called HPAC. And I kind of like the idea. And she says we're taking probably the May ballot off and probably not doing it. It was her first statement to me. I said, okay, what else is there? She says, oh, I want to adjust the income, the indexing, the lowest, like 125 to 250, to raise that to give relief to some of the property owners. Taxpayers. And I said, fine, well, what about the business community? Because the business community has had a lot of opinions on this, and they want something too. And she says, I'm not sure on that yet. I will get back to you. I do have a second phone call set up with her on that. That's one. She says, I would like to do these changes administratively and not go to the ballot, of which we have been saying all along. Why are you going to the ballot when it's not necessary? And their argument to us is, well, our attorney said so. Well, there's a lot of other attorneys out there that may not be in total agreement on that. So that's where that is today. Whereas I am hopeful in these discussions going forward. I had a meeting with the tri-chairs on this on Monday night. We are going to sit down with Lynn Peterson in August as soon as we can get a meeting scheduled. And it's difficult because everybody's on vacation all over the place. And talk to her with exact details on what she wants to do. My thoughts on this, if you want to create an HPAC, it's the tri-chairs who are going to set the table. The tri-chairs will set the table. We will determine who is going to participate. We are going to determine in a very strong voice the outcomes, the governance, and any other thing that we can think of, because we are the ones that deliver the services. Metro does not. I have never seen in my lifetime, in the last year of meetings at Metro, more confusion and more upset. And we're just trying at the counties to deliver the services that the people said they wanted. And so I can't give you more details on that. They did say we do not have to redo the IGA. Yeah, of course. We can't redo an IGA by December. It's not impossible. We can keep the IGA. I am uncertain on what they want to do with the sunset. I assume they want to extend the sunset, but I don't know. The governance model is extremely important. I do think at least some people at Metro realize the counties are the governance model and they're the ones doing the work. And streamlining, yes, is important, We don't have numbers if we raise the income level on indexing, what that will do to our programs. The Portland Metropolitan Chamber Organization says we want a 30% tax cut. Adam, I understand you've done some numbers. If an overall 10%, 20%, and 30% cut came at 30%, that's not going to work for us. You know, we can slide in to a 10% overall tax cut, I think is the information I got. We can plan ahead for that. But, you know, we're still creating programs in this county. And there's a lot of work we can do based on the pressure we've got from the governing body, quote, Metro. So the tri-chairs have probably, are so joined together, are really so under the same opinion of this. And I personally think we're in the catbird seat right now. And a lot of other conversations were had with this. And unfortunately, that's all I have for you right now on this. I will bring you information as it comes forward. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah. Appreciate that new information, Chair. When we last discussed this, it was on the heels of a conversation I had with Metro counselors who basically, you know, respect, have a good relationship with all the Metro counselors. But on this particular topic, and the counselors share with me that you know, he was asking us why. Well, my question was, why aren't we talking about the successes, what's working, and here I am advocating for a roundtable of county commissioners and Metro counselors to discuss this. If you're going to be doing all of this, and so more eyes and ears and feet on the ground to, you know, come up with a more informed decision. And when I asked the question, why are we talking about our successes, we can learn from one another on our successes and our failures as well. And his response was, well, you know, you guys are doing a great job serving population B, but you're not doing very good on population A. And my rebuttal to him was, well, you know, if you go back and look, you'll find that we don't have the tools to address, and that's pretty public, especially in Multnomah County more than here. They don't have really the tools to deal with the people that refuse the housing and refuse the services, really. And that's where we have this gap and this disinvestment at the state level in mental health and also in drug treatment facilities. You know, I don't want to use buzzwords, but, you know, you can say that a housing first model, or you can say it's recovery and so on. I don't want to get in that argument. You know, I know that each individual has unique needs, and I think we need to have all the tools in the toolbox. So yesterday, a number of us, 4 of us, attended, I believe, the Oregon City Business Alliance discussion, and Councilor Lewis was present. She did a brilliant job. She's a good speaker. She spoke to, you know, what I've heard from coming from Metro, but what was not mentioned, and it was one of my questions, which they had a lot of questions, mine wasn't put on the table by the facilitator. And my question was, all right, what do we do with the large population, with that's getting all the publicity, the people that are still on the street that are not prepared or willing to accept housing? We can build all the housing in the world we want, but this population that's getting all the publicity is, again, they're refusing it. What do we need? What are the tools? So why would we not? And what was not talked about yesterday was those missing tools or services, and that is mental health and drug addiction services and all the other, that kind of care. That's what it's going to take for Multnomah County to be woefully successful, and all of us, frankly, even Clackamas County. We have people out there, and that one road over there on Clackamas Road or whatever it is, there's an example of that we're trying to give them the help and to get them in a better place. So if that roundtable, my question is, Emily, in that, you know, it doesn't sound like, you know, getting picked off on a one-on-one is not as powerful and I think is informative so that everyone can hear the answer or hear the question and everyone learns at the same time. I don't know how many problems I have seen where, you know, like a few people maybe know what's going on, but the elected officials or the board or the council, whatever it may be, they don't all have that same information. So we're all working on the different information sets, right? The value of the roundtable. So it sounds like that's not in the horizon?
I haven't heard anything about it, but that doesn't mean that we can't reinitiate that request again.
Right.
I'm happy to do that.
And I know, and you heard me say it when we last discussed this, that, you know, and we included in the letter, you know, I'd like to see the numbers. Chair, you mentioned it too. I want to see the financials, because what would it cost to if we want to be successful with this population, the population A, if we want to be successful, what do we need and how much does it cost? But yesterday, again, a brilliant presentation by Metro, very similar to what the presentation has been, but omitting those two particular issues, which I think is going to set us up for failure. We're not going to be successful. Any insight, Adam?
Yeah, Commissioner, I'll just say one thing here. So you're absolutely right. Unmet behavioral health needs, unmet addictions needs, fentanyl crisis on the streets. Those are the biggest challenges we're facing, right? And there are some intractable folks out there. But we're persistent, right? You've heard the stories about, well, maybe it takes 20 outreach contacts. So I think Clackamas County is on the right track with its recovery-oriented system of care, trying to expand access to behavioral health services, expanding access to recovery services, our stabilization center, the recovery center. Those are investments we need to be making. But so there is a portion that we're going to need to continue to double and triple down on to reach those folks. But I think that is a small portion of the population. Now, they have an outsized impact, no doubt, on all of our systems, including our jail systems, our hospital systems, et cetera. No question. But I want to dispel one narrative here, which is a narrative we keep hearing out of Metro that I have questioned, and that is this question around our ability to serve population A. I don't know if it's insularity, lack of proximity to our programs or what, but we are serving population A. We are meeting our commitment to the split, allocating resources that are intended to address chronic homelessness, right? So population A is people who have a long history of homelessness, are extremely low income, and have one or more disabling conditions. We are laser focused on serving that population. We are serving the most vulnerable. We are getting them into supportive housing programs, and we are seeing a lot of success, right? You've heard Vahid say that our retention rate in PSH is in the upper 90%, right? I think the national averages are in the mid 80s. So we're seeing success there, but I have to call out this narrative that is just ill-informed. We are not struggling to serve population A. There's a really challenging subset, but we are doing our job here. So,
I have extreme success, or not success, respect, extreme respect for the Metro counselors. And again, Counselor Lewis did a great job yesterday. But it's what wasn't said, and it's almost as though they have all the answers and we don't. And I think that having that bi-directional conversation to inform them, that's what's missing. And I appreciate the chairs, and whether it's a HPAC or whatever it may be, but one thing I find that fascinating, Chair. One thing I will say is that if I have a criticism of the structure of JPAC, it's this. It's that, we are a metro region of 25 cities and 3 counties. And JPAC has only 1 city per county. And I would say that's an error. And it's not that I'm pro or against cities. My issue here is that it needs to be more of local governments that are doing this kind of work, that are skilled at this kind of work at the table and are willing to do the work, versus having it overwhelmed and chaired by Metro.
And I would agree with you. We discussed that on the city's participation and who else, what stakeholders. And I'm talking real stakeholders that deliver the services, not just the makeup of the oversight body or the tri-county body of all the nonprofits and the construction people and all of this person who shows up and sucks all the money into their organizations. Some of those are good. Some of them, I've seen a lot of stuff that I don't like, but that's true. And when I said, Commissioner Savas, that we set the table, I think we can take in a lot of the information from this board, from the Washington County Board, from the Multnomah County Board. I think we're pretty much on the same because, like you say, you have sat on JPAC forever. You know what works about it, and you know what the pitfalls are. And so I'd be very interested in going forward if we get there.
Yeah, if I
You
could.
talk about, I want to say one thing. You mentioned the round table. Well, in a way, the HPAC can be the round table to bring in these different elected people or whoever wants to serve on it.
Yeah, and that might, That's a good point, but I think, right, I think there's an immediate need, and this is where I'm going. There's an immediate need right now for a roundtable, because what's not happening, whether it's at JPAC or here, or yesterday, or what they call the mixer that took place in Gladstone here on this topic, they're not asking us what we need. Are they asking us what we need to be successful? And what we know we need is not part of their dialogue. It's missing, it's omitted. And there's a cost to that, and I don't want to have them juggling numbers and talking about changing tax rates if you're missing this big thing that has a financial component to it, and you're not addressing it. Anyhow, maybe I'm too practical, I'm sorry.
No, and I appreciate your comments. You know, when they talk about, this is my criticism. They have their dialogue, they have their opinions, and it's really easy to say to the counties, you're not serving population A, because I drove down I-205 and I see blue tars. Okay? And they don't know what they're talking about, because I will say one thing. The Metro councilors were never, ever engaged in our roundtables that we had. How many did we have of those? We just finished a humongous. They don't show up for the Tri-County Planning Body. They don't show up for the Oversight Committee. There's not a single Metro councilor there except Christine Lewis showed up sometimes at the roundtable. So, and they're not engaged. The only one I know engaged was Mary Nolan, who was in opposition to them sending a ballot measure out, because she said, that's not what we promised the voters. I will say this, serving population A. Look at the Supreme Court decision that overturned Grants Pass. Look at what the Oregon legislature in their House bill that codified the decision before it was overturned. If you want to address population A Metro councilors, then you go down to the legislature and you overturn that bill based on a recent Supreme Court decision on Grants Pass versus Johnson. That's how we serve population A. Commissioner Scholl, unless you're done.
Yeah, almost. One other thing, and that is that the other thing I mentioned to this Metro councilor is not only do we need, you just touched on it, not only do we need additional resources for those additional needs and your support and a change in the implementation plan to allow that to happen and the resources to do it, but we also need help from the state. The state disinvested in mental health. We can't do this alone, right? This is a statewide problem, not just a Metro problem. And our ability, and this has been an issue that's been covered on a number of not shows, but a number of investigations and so forth and work, and that is our ability to, or the state law changing and reworking the civil commitment. So there are some people that really are in need and they need that help. Right now, the ways all the states are different, but ours in a way, some people that really need that help. Our laws on civil commitment don't disallow that.
Mm-hmm. And I do think Grants Pass Supreme Court can help with that somewhat. I'm not a legal authority on that, but that could help. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you. Well, good morning. Thanks again for all your work on this. Clackamas County is making progress on this problem. If we go back to 2020, when the voters passed the Supportive Housing Services measure, that had a 10-year lifespan. The people, their expectation was that we would make significant progress over that 10 years to solve the homeless problem. And Clackamas County is making progress. Right now, at the rate of taxation from the Supportive Housing Services measure, by the time it sunsets in 6 years and 5 months from today, it will have taxed the people some, by my estimation, $2 billion. And the people expect significant progress. So I believe that the idea to even look at making the Supportive Housing Services measure permanent is a defeatist attitude that sends the wrong message to the people of Clackamas County, that we cannot significantly solve homelessness and make it short-lived and infrequent, if ever, So we need to make sure that we can identify the problem that remains in our county, because that's the county that we can affect. Can't affect those to the north or Washington County. To identify the remaining problem, to identify what's been successful, and we have been successful, and to then come up with a plan, a glide path to solve what remains of homelessness, and to work with, like it's been said here already, with the state perhaps, and the legislature, to make sure that we have the tools to effect the population that has so far refused our help. Okay? So that when we draw nearer to December of 2030, when this sunsets, we can say, we did a good job, we've been successful. And the other thing too is, of course, shelter is one part of the problem, but there are, the homeless problem is like an octopus. It's got tentacles going out in every direction. Mental health, addiction, fentanyl, uncontrolled border that allows the flow of these drugs across the border and up the I-5 corridor to our county. All these are big problems that we need to work on in a holistic approach. But I think it's been said here earlier that Clackamas County does not need really anybody else telling us how to do this work. We have professionals in H3S. We have other professionals in the county who are working diligently on this problem. And we need time to let the supportive housing services measure play out over the next 6 years and 5 months before we begin to look at making it permanent. And then, again, just the idea of that sends the wrong message to the people of the county. It says, well, maybe they can't fix this by December of 2030. And I pray we can. In fact, more than that, we must fix it by then, so that what remains when the SHS measure sunsets is a very small problem. So the management of that will be a much lesser job than what we have today. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. You talk about if you're doing this, you admit failure. That was one of my presentations, you remember, Emily, in April. I absolutely echoed what you said here today regarding if we're going to extend this for another 10 years, or talking about another 20 years. Well, you admitted failure. You're not interested in solving the homeless situation. So I don't know where we're going to end up with that. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I was, Chair, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, and appreciate what Emily said. One thing that caught my attention in particular was they're turning those 2 dates into work sessions on how to continue to frame it, and yet they haven't asked us what we need, right? And we haven't had the roundtable, haven't had the discussion. So I'm inclined, and I'll do it on my own, but there again, if it came from the board, it'd be more powerful. I'm inclined to send them a letter stating just that, our concerns. I know we already sent a letter, but I'll do it on my own, if you're okay with that. But I really want to just say that yesterday's emphasis, I could see that the focus was solely on building more housing, and building more housing, and building more housing, and that's all it was focused on. And that, I was hoping it would be a little bit more broad, but even at the mixer, I did not hear what I was hoping to hear, or having someone ask us the question, what do you need to be successful?
Emily, do we know if those hearings / work sessions are going to proceed, even with the new, quote, offer on the table?
My understanding is yes. Staff needs formal direction from the council, and these 2 work sessions would help kind of frame that up. But Commissioner Savas, you're right. I think it warrants at least a communication from an individual, if not the whole board, to
Well,
just
okay, we
restate.
have more effect if we're together on this. I've been in the lead on this, Commissioner Savas. I appreciate your efforts, but I think there's more oomph to it if the entire board is on with that letter. And that's why the tri-chairs have been so successful. Do you realize, because of the effort of the tri-chairs, they are not referring to November? They probably are not going to refer it to May, and we're getting some of what we need out of this, because we do carry a lot of weight. And I have realized that in the last month, that we do carry a lot of weight. And we have been, if anything, this board has been consistent in what we need. So let's make a list of what we need, Emily, and we'll send it later. If Paul wants to help write that, sure. But I would like it to see come from the entire board.
I agree that would be far more effective.
Yeah.
If it came from all of us.
Yeah, of course.
Well, and
Adam?
Commissioners, I'll just add that, like, you know, we're pragmatists. We just kind of want to show up and do the work and do what's in the best interest of the community. It feels sometimes like this is a bit of an academic exercise, you know, or a political exercise, and that feels hard because we have real problems that we're trying to solve every day. So I think if there's one ask in this communication, it's that it's rooted in what we're seeing as counties on the ground, the barriers we're seeing to success, and it isn't kind of an insular academic exercise that operates on assumptions that just aren't true on the ground here every day delivering the programs.
Any other comments on that? So thank you for your update. Let's work on a letter.
Okay.
Excuse me, Commissioner Schrader.
okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one comment. Our metrics are showing extreme success. So that message is not getting through to the Metro Council? I mean, is that really the case at this point? I mean,
It's a both and.
Like, we're telling the right story. We're sharing the information. But I think one of the things that's come out of the conversations is that we're always looking backwards. What did we do, right? Which is true. You can't share what you've done until you look backwards a little. But I think, so I think there's a delay in an understanding about what's happening every single day. Adam, tell me.
No, you're right. That's exactly right. It's a lagging narrative, right? The reporting, the spending, it's all retrospective and months or even a year, right? You've commented when we give the annual reports, right? And Metro was here, and that was one of your comments was, this information is a year old, okay?
And they're
So-
operating on that.
You're right. And so that lagging narrative is part of the problem.
and so what can you do to improve that? Is this what the roundtable is going to be about? Is this
Ideally.
what-
It's,
I mean,
well,
'cause
okay,
that's-
first of all, Commissioners, let me clarify. The roundtables have ended.
Okay,
As cumbersome and horrific as they were, I'm not ready to go back to do a roundtable. I'm going to be very frank with you.
you're just
We need
thinking-
another governance model.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think we are subject to the headlines in Portland and Multnomah County. They cannot buy a headline that says that they have any success whatsoever. And frankly, they're not keeping staff. Their staff is a revolving door. So that is spilling onto Clackamas County because people are too focused and centered on the bad headlines, so they think that's everybody. But then when you look at Washington County, has had great success. You look at Clackamas County, you've had great success. And I did say one thing at the tri-chairs. I says, look, don't think for 1 minute that Metro needs to come in on this HPAC and tell the tri-counties that we're going to do this the same way. Because Clackamas County operates differently than Multnomah County. No more than Multnomah County can do what Clackamas County is doing because we are all operating on different types of philosophies, on services, on geographic barriers and geographic opportunities. So I am not interested in a one-size-fits-all solution to solve homelessness when we have had great success in some of these counties. And as Martha has always said, if you've seen one county, you've seen one county. And we need to remind Metro of that. Go ahead, Commissioner. Are you finished?
no, I don't have anything left to say. I'm just happy that this is all working out so well for us. And the lag, I think you're right, the governance restructure will help move us forward in a way where perhaps there won't be such a lag in the narrative and moving beyond. I'm 100% for that. I think that's an excellent, excellent idea. And I always thought that those two bodies were extremely cumbersome and really wasn't conducive to actual on-the-ground problem solving. And so hopefully this new notion will move us forward a lot more quickly, and we'll see more coordination between our counties.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I can just weigh in one more time about that. So the part of the conversations have been doing some prospective planning, looking ahead at creating goals ahead of time. And then as we do, or as the department does quarterly reports, we're showing our work as we look forward instead of always looking backwards. They're great goals. The ones that we're working off of are good, but I think a little more prospective planning will help tell our story in real time. And those are showing up, that conversation is showing up at the, at least at the staff level table. We're talking about that because it affects us all. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll stay engaged on this conversation. We'll come back, it sounds like, with a quick turnaround on a letter to help restate the board's needs as the Metro, I'm thinking as I'm talking, sorry, as the Metro Council considers what they actually are gonna do going forward.
Another goal of the HPAC, and I forgot this, are the annual audit reports.
Yeah.
To be released, and Lynn Peterson did talk about more transparency and accountability. Hey, I'm all for that. We can put these reports out to the public. What have we done with the dollars, and what are the programs, even beyond the audit, to speak to that? And let's face it, we're terrible, Metro is terrible at communicating what's going on. The communications are awful. So if the HPAC forms, that can be one of the main functions, is transparency and accountability. As the money comes out to the counties, what are we doing? And we're already doing quarter reports. We don't have to recreate the wheel on this. We've always been pretty good about that. Okay, Paul.
Just real quick, yeah, you know, in this conversation, you're right. The Portland Metro region, you know, we're all different. And I do know, whoever, I think it was you that said it, Chair, or acknowledged that the challenge of the city of Portland and the challenge of Multnomah County and trying to sort out their problems and their issues and their challenges. And I'm sure they've got successes. I have no doubt that they got some successes there. And I want to make sure that we're not conveying that they're failing everywhere. They're not. There's good people out there trying to do good work. But if we get caught up in if Metro is, they're going to listen to us, they're going to listen to Washington County, and they're rightfully going to listen to Multnomah County. And we know that the numbers of Multnomah County and the city of Portland are significant. So, but if they're struggling, and it's clear in the media, they're struggling with this problem, Metro's not going to get a clear message, right, from Multnomah County. So therefore, we're all being bogged or dragged down in this political challenge. And so I think that's why my message was, why don't we look at the successes and learn from that, and then look at the failures and figure out how we build on that as a mutual, not just Clackamas County, but the region. And that's my message. And crying out loud, the sooner the letter and the shorter the letter, the better, I think, on this time. You know, especially the fact that they're having a meeting, you said July 25th, which is what, Thursday?
Yep.
Yep, tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? I thought it was next week. Oh,
Well,
you're
there's
right,
August
yes.
1st. There's
That's
the
right.
25th and then the 1st.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So tomorrow, you're right, and then the week after.
let's bring in Commissioner West, who's absent today. I'm sure he has some ideas on what the future holds for this. Yeah.
You know, one other thing we need to think about, and we've talked about fentanyl, we've talked about mental health, but we also need to remember that one of the groups of people that are becoming homeless more often are our senior citizens. And many of them find that staying in the home they raise their families in is not possible because of low income in retirement, and continuing increasing in property taxes. In the briefing yesterday at the Abernathy Center, one gentleman who's a builder said that you'd be lucky in Portland to find a buildable lot for under $200,000. And if you did, the permits to build a small house on that lot begin at $50,000. So that's $250,000, and you haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet to build a home. You know, we cannot fail to remember that part of this equation is driven by the urban growth boundary, is driven by the very high cost of land. And so, again, we need to remember that as we work on this population A, which is important, that we're also working on this whole big circle of all causes and effects of this problem we're working on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl, and all commissioners who participated in this. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll give a stab at that letter and see where we end up.
We'll be back next week.
Thank you very
you.
much. Gary.
Thank you. Next, proposed 2025 Transportation Values and Outreach Document. This is from the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. Public and Government Affairs team will present. Tonio Holowetsky, Interim Director, and Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. There's a memo in your packet. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me? Tonio Holowetsky, Interim.
Welcome.
Welcome back. Interim Director of Public and Government Affairs, and with me is Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. And we are here today, this morning, to request that you approve the proposed value and outcomes document that's in your packet. It was developed by the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, or C4, at their retreat in June, and it was in preparation for the 2025 state legislative session and the expected new transportation package. They did this at their retreat, and we're happy to answer any questions about the process and any questions you may have about the document itself. They will be having a meeting, they will be holding their next meeting on August 1st, and so we would like to have this document finalized by then. So any input or additional suggestions you have are very welcome. So with that, I'll hand it over to you for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Tanya. Trent, do you have any comments?
Just want to say thank you for your participation at the C4 retreat, those who were able to attend and helped participate in the building of this. Y'all might recall that it was a wonderful wordsmithing exercise that we did with all of our cities to get to the draft that you see here. And so all of our jurisdictions in Clackamas County are looking at this exact same draft over the month of July to provide input to us. And this is our opportunity to have the conversation with you to see if this is something that our full body, as a governing body, would be willing to either provide a logo on or provide input on to update this draft. And I'll just add, we have several cities who have voiced that they would be willing to support this as drafted. We have several cities who would like to see a couple of additions or edits for improvements. And so I'm anticipating at this time that at the August 1 C4 meeting, we'll probably consider a few line edits or updates. And so we'd be happy to take your feedback on this now.
Thank you for that. I do have some edits I'd like to take, and in my view is county-wide. Whereas I appreciate the cities are wholly on their unique vision that's real tunnel vision to their needs, I'm looking at this letter from a county-wide perspective, and I have questions on why some of the language was used.
Sure.
Regarding the first blue bullet, blue
Bar.
box, and the very last fourth bullet, it says secure varied revenue sources to provide for the needs of different communities. Okay, I get that. And Clackamas County is a community. I'm not sure why we landed on that language, but it's pretty broad.
Are you talking about bullet 3, just so I can follow?
I'm talking about blue box number 2, bullet 4.
Okay.
Thank you. And Paul, you don't have to mention that. I'm just processing this, so I read this yesterday. I have some questions since I did not participate. So I'm looking at this like a legislator, okay? I'm looking at it as I'm the legislator who sits on the Education and Energy Committee. And I'm not the transportation guru that the people who wrote this letter was. So that is my lens on looking at this. And some of the terms may not make sense. So if we want to have a more broad approach to success on this, is how I looked at it. Go to, please, the third blue box on bullet number 2. It says, formulate a list of secondary projects for future funding, including Sunrise Corridor. By using the word secondary, there's an assumption that we have primary projects. What are those? Because I do not want to list the Sunrise Corridor in the absence of the I-205 third lane. And I wasn't there for the discussion. So if I'm legislator X sitting on the Education Committee, oh, they don't want the I-205 corridor. They just want Sunrise Corridor. And let's face it, Sunrise Corridor, in my opinion, is a pipe dream. We're not going to get there for a decade. We do have an opportunity with shovel-ready on I-205. I know, Paul, you don't like hearing that. I like the work we're doing on the Sunrise Corridor. I'm being a pragmatist on this, okay? And the widening of the third lane on the I-205 enhances our northbound traffic to where all the transportation monies are going, to the Rose Quarter, to the bridge across the Columbia. That's an enhancement to those areas where I see our state leadership wants to go. So I would like that. I don't, secondary projects, I don't know why that word was used, but if we could figure that out.
Chair, can I just maybe add some insight on that?
Yep.
And maybe this might help in the conversation if there's any adjustments. When I read that, I look at the first bullet, it really says that, finish the directed capital project, which is I-205, but it doesn't say 205, it says HB 2017 and 30, which was exclusively, at least for us, for that. So the second bullet seems to be the subsequent conversation, and then formulate a list of another layer, right? So I think it's I think the second bullet is in context of the first bullet.
Okay, so when I was in the legislature, I did a lot of heavy stuff. I rarely remembered bill numbers from a previous session because I have 4,000 bill numbers for a new session. So to think that legislators, and Paul, you're that bill guy, we know 217 and 3055, they're not going to know that said I-205. If you want to move I-205 up to the first bullet, I am not objectionable to that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think that makes a
Absolutely,
lot of
yeah.
sense.
So, like I say, I'm reading it very primary from legislators who do not have the expertise of the C4 folks or the JPAC or even the people who sit on transportation committees. And then the next blue box talks about accessibility and funding to multimodal facilities. I don't know what multimodal means. I think I know what it means. I've heard enough conversation around here. But what does it mean, Trent?
Thank you. Multimodal is just those transportation options that exist beyond a single occupancy vehicle. So it could be
That exists beyond what?
a single occupancy vehicle, so just a person in their car. So this would include buses, it would include scooters or walking or biking,
Does it
rideshare.
include light rail?
It would include light rail as well.
Okay, that's a problem.
Okay.
Okay, that's a problem. At over $1 billion a mile, and it's probably $2 billion a mile now to construct light rail, is probably today not the best use of our transportation dollars. I have trouble with the term multimodal. I don't know what else that you do, and maybe everybody else in the big world understands it, but I think our citizens need to understand this too on that. And on that blue box, the very last bullet, says, consider emerging micro-mobility options. And you mentioned on that, so what are the options? And the micro-mobility is all these other different transportation routes. Are we going to throw in EVs in there?
You're asking a great question. That was a big conversation at the retreat, whether this bullet should be included in there or not, or whether it's already captured within this multimodal conversation. Micromobility is.
I think it's confusing the previous messages. I think it's confusing to the previous bullets, and I think it waters down the message. That's just me. Okay, that's just me. We might want to do something with that, or define it. Or define what micromobility options means. Okay, the last blue box. Support housing protection and economic opportunity, a transportation package should, in order to support those, accelerate robust, multimodal, well-connected transportation systems in developing areas. Does that mean high-growth areas? Does that mean Molalla and Estacada out in our rural areas? You know, everybody has, you know, a stake in that. And then improve the operations of regional freight routes and arterials, and I want the word bridges in there. I spoke yesterday eloquently on ODOT has a weight limit, a lot of our bridges in Clackamas County, to 4 axles, to 20,000 pounds. That's not a log truck, that is not a gravel truck, that is not a construction truck, that is not a food services truck, because we need to be able to transport what we're producing in Clackamas County, because we are an export county. Bridges are, it's going to become so important on that. So those are just a few of my thoughts on this, just reading it from, like I say, I wasn't at the table, but if we just need to be able to communicate, you know, really well on this.
Thank you for that feedback. I'm happy to share all of this with C4, and maybe even if you'd like me to respond to anything specifically, I'm happy to do that. I know Commissioner Savas has been part of this, and we can take this to C4 next week as well. It's reflective of some of the conversations that we've heard from some of the other jurisdictions as well. So on the, going back to the House Bill 2017 projects, which includes 205, some of the feedback that we received from one of our cities was to mirror language that JPACT is trying to use, which is like to fulfill the promises of House Bill 2017. That promise language is not quite in here, which includes 205. That promise in the bill language includes the 3rd lane and Abernathy Bridge, not just Abernathy Bridge. That's really important, I think, for Clackamas County at large, and I'm hearing you say that as well.
I'm looking at it from a county level.
Sure.
Okay, and I understand that a lot of cities were present, and I don't think a city would disagree that we need the 3rd lane in I-205 just to help everybody. So I do think it needs to be someplace. Okay. Who's up?
I think Martha was first.
Mr. Schrader, go.
Yeah, so I really want to know what micromobility options are. I'm thinking scooters, I'm thinking
Thank you. Yeah, not a transportation professional.
electric bikes, I mean, is that?
Yes. The answer is yes, is these sort of last mile opportunities that improve bike lanes, that get you from a bus station into your neighborhood or towards, you know, some of those resources that you might be using it. So bike lanes, e-bikes, or other things like this, even small transit like shuttles could potentially fit within this area to take you off of a main line into a tighter community that doesn't have, you know, the big bus line or a train line, for example.
Yeah, I observed that in Tampa with the shuttle piece. And also in San Diego, they have scooters all over that people can just pick up and do, but it causes its own sets of problems because you've got more people, you know, on the road with these smaller, you know, having, could be hazardous, I think. Would not be my first choice, that's for sure, but.
Not my first choice either, but we like our cars in Oregon.
Yeah.
Mr. Savas?
Yep, thanks. So just to start with Commissioner Schrader's comment, so the part that, you know, and you said shuttles, which I agree, and that's not really an emerging, it's really emerging like this other things are, right? So
not like
if the intent is indeed, or that's where shuttles are covered, I'm a big believer in shuttles, by the way, then maybe scratching the word emerging might make that clear. Just throwing that out there. I'm not, you know, so that might make that more clear. Or just spell it out. Hey, micromobility, you know, scooters, shuttles, so on and so forth, and just, and maybe make it more clear. I do, you know, Chair, I agree. I mean, you got to sometimes make these things so that anyone can pick it up, read it, and comprehend it, right? And some of these terms, sometimes we get lost, even if it's a House bill. So point taken. I will say one thing that I thought was fascinating. getting back to the Sunrise Corridor and your comments, Vice Chair Gorsuch was present, as was Vice Chair McLean. And no one mentioned projects, and no one mentioned the Sunrise Corridor other than Vice Chair Gorsuch, who lives and uses the Sunrise Corridor, and he was complaining, I'm surprised you're not including that. That's a big deal. I want that fixed. So I don't know. I think we ought to capitalize on that, frankly, and realize that he's part of, and I drive that, and he does too, and I can just tell you that miles of backup on Highway 212 is the norm right now. And he experiences that, and so do all the other legislators that are using Highway 212. So I'm more hopeful than not. That I'm not saying when, certainly not tomorrow, but if we have the vice chair of the Transportation Committee who is somewhat focused on that, I think that's a good thing for us.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader, you're up again.
Yeah, we've been talking about the Sunrise since 2003, actually, since I first came here. And the piece that we did get done was that one piece that goes along the 212 Phase 1. And I think that we need both, because I think that the highest growth area that we're really experiencing in Happy Valley would be far more accessible for business expansion and development if we could actually get that corridor really kind of up and running and finished. But I agree with the chair that, Chair Smith, that I-205, I would just push like crazy for both projects. It's time. We haven't gotten a thing.
Yeah.
And when I can tell you I've sat here since 2003, and there's just one little phase over there, and all that development is happening, that is going to be a huge piece of our economic engine in this county. We have to do something. We've got to do it, so.
Yep.
And I served on transportation, I think you knew that, and economic development when I was in the legislature too. And, yep, even then, we got a big package through, but we still didn't get the Sunrise included in that, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
You know, the nicest thing that ODOT could do for the city of Portland is to finish the I-205 expansion.
Yeah, really.
You know, we have nothing but stories of congestion trying to get through Portland. And the completion of the I-205 expansion would just make life in Portland so much nicer. It's a no-brainer. I cannot believe that the Secretary of Transportation came out here, I think it was in March, and left with giving a check to essentially ODOT for $400 million or $450 million to be applied towards the Albina project on I-205. You know, when he rolled down I-205 and experienced the congestion of lack of that third lane. So we need to push on that. The other thing too, on the Sunrise Corridor, of course, I come in on the 212 every morning and go home every night on the 212. And I've said more than just a few cuss words in the back up there at Damascus. And I'm just wondering if we might be money ahead if we actually specifically said something about our Phase 2 efforts on the Sunrise, which, of course, we're working on now with a concept for Phase 2 from out to 172nd. Just a thought. I know this is going to be general ideas, and I like it. I think the C4 did a good job. Remember that this document is produced by somewhat 35 people up there, I think it was. So it's, you know how it is when you put something together by committee, you get kind of a general sort of approach. But I think that's what this is for. We can't get in the weeds too much with this. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so I guess I'm asking all of us, including Trent, but my question will be more directed to Trent because he's going to help this conversation at C4 a little bit, and that is that you heard from other cities, jurisdictions, maybe a couple tweaks and refinements. You heard from us a little bit on some refinements. How, and I know we had C4's next not this tomorrow, but next Thursday. So I guess my question is, how do we make sure that all those things are considered? What do you propose, Trent?
Yeah, so thank you for your feedback today. What I can do is incorporate it with the other feedback that we've been receiving and present that draft to C4 next week for a sort of a, we'll call it a final blessing, and then return to you with that new language to see if you still approve the changes that have been updated as a board. And my goal, I think, process-wise, would be to give our jurisdictions the month of August, summer, holidays, vacations, the month of August, to reply yes or no with your, we support it, here's our logo, with the intent that we would be able to use this document in September. The Joint Committee on Transportation is still doing their roadshow. Their second to last trip is in Happy Valley on September 26th. And so having this, something like a unified document that says, the communities of Clackamas County, this is where we're at as you continue to build your transportation package. This is not super specific. It's not like we support this type of funding mechanism or that, which we believe is going to be the big work that starts in January, but it does put your priorities in play as they start to build the language of what are we trying to adjust if we come up with new or different funding mechanisms. So that's the process that I'm anticipating. August 1, C4, we'll see if we can get those, what edits get approved, and then send this back out to jurisdictions for an opportunity for another logo. That probably means another visit with you in one of the Tuesdays that follow August 1st.
Right. Okay, thank you for the reply. I do know that we all recognize that everyone's invited to the retreat. So when we talk next Thursday night, that'll be a different subset of that group, right? And then the cities, and not dissimilar to the conversation we just had with regard to the power of all 5 commissioners coming from the board, a letter to Metro, not dissimilar as that is having all the logos of all the cities on board. So it means compromise, I guess, sometimes in the language. So hopefully we get in a good place to where we have all the cities, ideally, that give us their logo as well as the county on this value statement, so it's ready for September.
But yeah, that's fine. Sure. Go do your thing, bring it back, and
Thank you very much.
thank you very much for coming
And
forward.
thank you for advocating for plain language. I wholly support that.
Thanks, Tanya. Trent?
All right, next, Budget Committee interviews. The Clackamas County Budget Committee has one seat that is becoming vacant. It is the seat currently held by Jan Lee. There have been, the recruitment process has already occurred. There are 10 applicants, including Jan Lee, who has applied for reappointment.
Oh,
This
she
is-
has. I thought she was going to retire.
No, she's applied for reappointment. So this is one of the ABCs. You asked to interview the candidates before you make a final decision. So I'd like to ask, which one of you would like to interview the 10 candidates for the one open position on the Budget Committee?
Why are we interviewing all 10?
You don't have to. You
I
can,
assume there are some not as qualified as the others.
that is accurate, yes.
So why are we interviewing all 10?
That's totally your choice. You could look
I
at the
suggest
applicants.
that if somebody can help in the process for commissioners, because as you know, Gary, going into fall and summer, we're going to be off 2 weeks, that is an exorbitant amount of time.
It's about 5 hours, yes. Would you like staff to narrow down the list, or would you like to assign commissioners to narrow down the list, and then you can decide who to interview?
I don't know, Commissioners, Commissioner Scholl, your light is on. I think
know,
it needs to be narrowed, excuse me, I don't know who's going to do it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'd be happy to look at the list and then make a recommendation to the rest of the board on who should be actually interviewed. And then, I'd be happy to do the interviews and report to you if you like.
Sure, Commissioner Savas.
Well, yeah, 10's a lot, so on that thread there, I would say maybe staff should at least communicate with those folks and maybe ask them some key questions, availability, and try to vet that out and narrow that list down to a more reasonable number. And certainly, I think there's some value in staff doing some of that groundwork. So we've got a good list. And then if I'm available, I'm happy to join Commissioner Scholl in the interviews.
And would that be PGA staff, Gary?
No, this would be the finance team.
Finance team. So maybe the finance team can meet with Commissioners Savas and Scholl on
Yes.
Vetting the list.
That's what I propose. So Commissioner Shull and Savas will have you meet with the finance staff, and together you can narrow down the pool to 3 to 4 or 5, and then Commissioner Savas and Shull would interview those candidates. Is that okay, Commissioners?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, and I do have one just fundamental question. If Jan Lee if that seat's not, do we normally do that? Yeah, I think we do, don't we? If there's an opening, even if there is someone still wants to reapply, that we still do all the interviews anyhow, right? Okay.
If there's more than one applicant, yes, you would still interview all the candidates, including the carryover.
So we'll make sure our protocols or processes are consistent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, have a plan of attack, Commissioner Shull and Savas. We'll work with you offline and then have you interview, and then you'll bring back recommendations to the full board. Okay, thank you. Next, documents signed on the board's behalf during your July 2024 recess. There's a memo in your packet. Per the Clackamas County Code Appendix A, the board has delegated that the county administrator can sign any contract agreement of any amount on behalf of the board when the board is on recess for 1 week or longer. This year, this recess, there are 3 documents that I signed or Nancy Bush signed because I was out of the office a few days myself, and I delegated to her signing authority. So to be fully transparent, here is the list of the 3. The entire packets are posted online, and we will record them. I've already approved them, so I'm not seeking your ratification. I just want to notify you and the public. They are: Item 1, certifications related to the Community Development Block Grant application for Community Development Block Grant funds, home funds, and Emergency Solutions Grant funds. There is no fiscal impact, and no county general funds are involved. You actually approved this right before your recess, but staff, we unfortunately missed one document. So Nancy just signed the document that affirmed the decision you made as a board before your recess. So I was comfortable that we signed that one. Item 2, amendment to a contract with Ant Farm for rural youth sheltering and inclement weather shelter services. The amendment value is $87,000 for 1 year. Total contract value is increased to $1,767,706.84 for 1 year and 7 months. Funding is through the State of Oregon Housing and Community Services Department. No county general funds are involved. This was to help support the extreme heat shelter services that Ant Farm did for us. They needed a little bit more money. That's why we approved this extension right before the heat event occurred in early July. So again, I was comfortable, Nancy signed that on my behalf. I was comfortable doing that because it's non-general fund, and we needed it to provide the heat sheltering during the heat event in early July. Finally, number 3, approval to apply for a grant with the United States Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, in the amount of $265,000 for the purchase of a new use of force simulator for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. No county general funds are involved. This was simply a grant application. We would be receiving this money if successful, and I signed that one and felt comfortable doing so. So those are the 3 that I signed on your behalf. Again, you don't have to approve it because it's already done, but I just wanted to tell you what I did, and we will record these documents. Do you have any questions about any of these? Do you have any concerns? I will take your reprimand, but again, I already said they're done. So any comments you have, I'm happy to answer them.
No, I think it's fine. We have these redundant systems set us up for situations like this.
Yes.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Next is advisory board and commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
I'll start with the Public Health Advisory Council. Let's see. Currently has 9 openings on the council due to term expirations and resignations. The full council consists of 16 members. Through a recruitment process, 17 applications were received. 9 are recommended for appointment. All of those would be new first terms. Recommendations are Desiree Thomas, Kirsten Pitzer, Mimi Luther, Romanette Leva, Auburn Marie, Savannah Powell, Christine Gann, Michelle Kutniak, and Max Pinnock.
I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we approve the slate.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the slate of Public Health Advisory Council staff. I'm not going to read the list. Tony did it quite well. And Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Shull,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Next up, the Clackamas County Vector Control District currently has one opening on their Board of Trustees. Due to the end of the term, through a recruitment process, one application was received. It would be a reappointment of Dakota Hufford.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Clackamas County Vector Control District recommendation of Dakota E. Hufford.
Second.
Commissioner Schull has moved the appointment of Dakota E. Hufford for the Clackamas County Vector Control District, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Up next, Gary?
Next, a review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, tomorrow, July 25th, 2024, at 10 a.m. You have a lengthy consent agenda, and you will have a public hearing to discuss a potential board order approving the construction of 2 gates on Clackamas Road. You discussed this prior to your recess, and this is a chance for you to get more information to decide if you want to go forward or not. That will be tomorrow at your business meeting. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know, and staff and I are happy to answer it for you before tomorrow. Next, Chair Smith, Commissioner Schrader, and Commissioner West, you attended the 2024 National Association of Counties Conference, and this is a chance for you to share all the many, many things I'm sure you learned and gathered at that conference.
Thank you. I asked for this time because I think it's important. Commissioner Schrader, you're going to be up first.
I am going to be up first. Well, I brought a number of documents home with me, and I want to welcome Chris Lowe, who's here in the audience, because I knew you were going to be coming in, so I also, when I was at the conference, picked up as much information I could about counties. So what I have with me here today to give to Chris is a short primer on our history, definitions, structures, and authorities. This is a history, a short primer. What is county government, what we do? It'll give you a total overview of why we're so important level of governance in this state. Then there's also another resource that I bought for you. It's called The County Landscape, Roles and Responsibilities of America's County Government. And essentially, we are vital as counties to our as appointed officials and instrumental partners in our nation's intergovernmental system, which balances, divides, and shares power and responsibilities between all levels of government. We are uniquely positioned as a level of government to administer vital intergovernmental systems, facilitate cooperation at all levels of government, and to deliver results and impact for our residents and at the community level. So colleagues, what you'll find in here is a whole primer on counties, how diverse they are. They have mapping of all the kinds of functions that we do, what county governance and management does, federal to county nexus, connect communities, how we create prosperous communities, vibrant communities, veteran services, and how we are the public health entity. And we do much more. And we also have what we call, and I'll let Chris maybe play with the computer today to get a look at this. It's called the County Explorer. And it compares counties across 13 categories, over 100 databases, and more than 1,000 data points across local issues, including county economies, infrastructure, health, and public safety. And the reason why I wanted to bring this back is I do think it's very critical that when people ask me what counties do, my answer is we do everything. You name it, we do it. We have a finger in this, and it's very, very important that I also am biased because I believe, after all my years at NACO and learning all these materials and bringing them back, I truly believe that we are one of the most effective forms of government. We're the closest to the people. I think counties and municipalities are critical to community prosperity, and that all the services we provide, everything from public health to housing to economic development, we're the boots on the ground and get most of our dollars either from property taxes And as many of you know, one of the reasons we go back to NACO, and I'll get into that in a few minutes, is because we are constantly lobbying our federal government for dollars to run our programs. One of the things I did at my Community Economic and Workforce Development meeting was carry the carry the policy resolution for our meeting on actually keeping community block grants open. CDBG programs are integral to what we do. Even today, we've mentioned a few of the things that, Gary, you signed something that had to do with community development block grants. That helps us funnel the dollars we need to do what we need to build in this county. The other piece that I had an opportunity to carry forth was the Community Reinvestment Act. And the support, the Community Reinvestment Act opposes any effort to weaken the act because continuing disparities in mortgage lending adversely impact low-income, distressed, and minority communities. This has been passed since 1977. So I won't go through the whole list. I will leave this out if you want to take a look and see all the resolutions that we passed as our platform from the Community Economic and Workforce Development community. The other thing that I was able to do, and I know, Chair, you're going to talk about this too, but I had an opportunity to visit a symposium on artificial intelligence. They've asked me to be part of the technology committee as a commissioner now because I showed interest. And I know, Chair, you're going to talk about it, but this is a roadmap that I was able to pick up, a comprehensive toolkit for local governance and implementation of artificial intelligence. And at this conference, when I was there the 2 days earlier, in order to attend the artificial intelligence piece, this is not going away, folks. It's going to become an integral part of how we operate. And everyone who is a proponent of this has said that it will increase, the whole notion is to increase productivity, but we have to train people in the workforce that know how to use it in order to increase that productivity. And Chair, I'll let you finish that up
Thank you very
in a
much.
minute. The other thing I just wanted to share, and I could go on and on forever, but I won't. I know, Commissioner Sherrill, you had mentioned land use, and we had one of our keynote speakers at my committee that is called, it's the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. It is a think tank in Boston, and what they have developed that they showed us how to use, and I'd be glad to show this to you, is a tool of how you can track down to census plots and smaller where all the underdeveloped land is in an area that you want to find. So what it is really a real map and a tool. If we're saying that we're not having enough, urban growth boundary expansion, one of the things that this tool enables you to do is to also look at what's already existing, what's underutilized, where could you do housing? And I think it could be a tremendous tool for our housing folks to take a look at this, and I'd be glad to show it to you. Other than that, it was a great conference. I got to see a number of my friends from all across the nation, and I have found it extremely valuable. And I did have to hand the gavel over this year, though. I was chair of the committee for 2 years, and that's all you get. So I handed that gavel over, but I'm also working with a Rural Counties Prosperity Initiative. It's called Rural Leaders for Economic Mobility. So both I and Lori Stegman are on this team. What we're doing is looking at rural counties that we've picked to look at across the nation. And we're coming up with a toolkit and as advisors to these rural counties to see how can they be real leaders with economic mobility. I haven't asked, I was hopeful I could be considered as a co-chair of this with one of my colleagues from West Virginia, but we'll wait and see if that really happens. But I have all this written material. It's all there for you to read, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to talk to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Clackamas County had the distinction of being the only county in Oregon to receive a national award at the Achievement Awards Luncheon. Leave it to H3S and the CHA hotline, and that is technically called the Clackamas County Coordinated Housing Access Improvement Program. We received an award, a national award for that, and I'm very pleased and proud of our department for developing that, and it works very well here in Clackamas County. I sat on the Agricultural Committee, secondly, the Energy and Land Use Committee, and then I opted in for the Committee on AI. And what I'm a little bit troubled about, the presentations were very good. But I sat in on the agriculture. Of course, we're going to reauthorize the Farm Bill and all that stuff like that. But the new thing that's coming down the pike, and it was probably there last year, is some federal government action regarding clean water and the effects it will have on everybody. And I believe it could be overreaching.
Waters of the U.S.?
No?
No?
Just let me finish. The action, and they're identifying of what we call PFAS. PFAS are compounds that are polyfluoroalkyl substances that work that dispersed by water. They're detected in the soil, surface water, groundwater, public water supplies. These detections have been associated with primary release of manufacturing, processing facilities, and U.S. military installation and other facilities that use firefighting foams. As owners, users, and regulators of water resources continues to play a key role in addressing these concerns. And what the concern of the Agriculture Committee is, if this is in our water, in our groundwater, we irrigate our crops. That goes into the crops, and guess who they're going to go after to clean up the PFASs? It's not our military installations. It's probably not our firefighters. It is the farmers who is producing our food, and that is the end user of that. And it has critical to the supply of food. Yet again, every time I turn around, you've heard my broken record speak to this, it is so critical. We're able to produce our own food for people. Now, it goes to every producer that produces anything in America. This is so far-reaching. There was a whole panel of lawyers on there, and they're going like this. They're shaking their heads. I think that this deserves our attention at this level to help try to abate the effects of this. There are approximately 66,000 public drinking water systems that will be subject to this rule, and 6 to 10% will need to take action. I don't know if it's in Clackamas County. I don't know, Gary, if it's in Oregon, but we do need, would like to know some information on this if we could get it. And its final conclusion, it says this final rule could place an economic burden on counties as PFAS are often suspended in the environment and leads to accumulation in water and waste facilities. I also question that statement. Suspended in the air all the time. I really question some of the methodology, Mark, that they're using to say PFAS are polluting everything. Basically, just shut down whole America from everything they're making. And I found that extremely, extremely troublesome. Of course, the Farm Bill has a lot of nice goodies in it. I want to talk to you about artificial intelligence. For a year, NACO has established a committee made up of different commissioners and judges to study the effects of artificial intelligence and where we are at in our governance as a county. And the big takeaway from me was this. You know, they're probably already using it, but you need to set some policy and some sideboards around it to make sure that it's not alarming. One of the top, and they did a survey across America. Of course, the Gen Xers are more into using artificial intelligence than maybe somebody my age, okay? But we may be using it and not realizing that we're using it. One of the officials who is an architect by trade, and he first came on this, And so he decided to design a 1,400-square-foot office building with all the goodies that they needed in it. So he draws up his artificial intelligence, and it's designed for him in about 5 minutes. And the first thing he said to myself, oh dear, I'm out of a job. And he says, they don't need me anymore. But he says, I want to caution you when you go back. If you're going to use this in your county, it should enhance the current workload of our county employees and not be used to replace county employees. Another example came forward. They wanted meeting minutes of 3 years ago. So whereas we post everything online, you will be able to type in a short word, and those meeting minutes can come up, not only for us, but for our constituents as well. I thought that was very interesting. They talked about the moral implications of it. They talked about probably 3 or 4 top divisions that would use it in our county. Of course, our TS department, I am convinced they're totally using it already. Human resources, which surprised me because they can use that in hiring. And as we know, it takes a long time for Human Resources Department to process a new position and get it out into the marketplace. And maybe that can speed up their jobs. Another is public safety. As we know, we have the vests with cameras on them, and maybe other cameras, maybe other areas. And what was most notable to me is our 911 call centers. We are always struggling to find people to fit the jobs, and we always have openings for that. And that can aid and assist the people who are working there. I think one of the most notable things that I became aware of last year when I toured the Portland General Electric facility that's located in Washington County, just over our border. It's a fantastic facility. I've talked about it before. It's like the mothership of, it's like Star Trek. Okay, seriously, it's like the Enterprise going in with all the tech, but more advanced. And what they do now is Portland General Electric have installed cameras on very tall trees throughout all the terrain of Oregon to detect a fire. And so in this governance magazine that came out recently, California has been using it. It's called California's AI project. It's called Alert California Network. And cameras can detect smoke columns and smoke being bent over, and then you take that data and bring it in. What I didn't realize is the cameras have to be trained by people to identify that that is smoke. And so that's a different application. So the human element involved in AI is very real. And it takes, in this article, it says it takes about 2 months for a camera to be trained to spot smoke. In California, in one county, the AI-trained camera spotted 77 fires before a 911 wall came in about any of them. And as we know, if we get there faster, less will burn. After that happens, it will generate a text message or a robocall or an on-screen alert to let our first responders know. If a fire is determined to be present, alerts will go out to the fire department that include exact GPS locations, so they're not driving around the hills trying, where's the fire, where's the fire? And I thought that was really, really interesting. They say it's important that you can share the platforms with others, all state, local agencies, but this is unique to Portland General Electric. I am so thankful that they just not only have the cameras, but they also have weather detection advices. They have an extensive, in California, and a very extensive AI-trained camera network, and it is being developed by the electric utilities in the states of Hawaii, Wyoming, California, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon. So I think in Clackamas County, we could have a leg up on our fire season. We had a few small fires detected, you know, like an acre or so, and they were put out, but they weren't way up in the hills. So if we're going to be saved, maybe it's going to be AI that saves us from burning up. That's all I want to say. And Gary, you talked to me about AI on a policy perspective at the county level as well. So we'll move forward on that. Anything you want to say?
Staff has already been working on this, but the first step is to make sure we have security security in place, cybersecurity, because once you start using artificial intelligence, that opens the door for cyber attack. So our first plan is for staff to prepare a policy on security, and then we'll come back to you with options for doing external services for AI.
Thank you. And any takeaway on this, they say, yes, it can help him be faster, but there's also always a downside. And you have to go very slow. And you tell your workforce, first thing, no, you will not be replaced by a computer or a robot. And I don't think any of us intend to do that. That's all the updates I have. Commissioner West will return. He attended the health committees, which I'm very anxious for an update from him. He was very diligent in learning more about health practices across America that he can share with us later. Now, Commissioner Communication, who wants to go first? Paula Mark.
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Well, thank you. On 12th of July, we had the Willamette Falls Lamprey celebration at Clackamas Park, and I had the privilege of welcoming the Yakima Nation, the Nez Perce Nation, the Umatilla Nation, and the Warm Springs Nation and their councils to Clackamas County. That it was hosted by the Yakima Nation, and they put on a salmon and lamprey lunch for anybody who came. Hundreds of people came.
Did you eat lamprey?
Oh, we did. Yeah, it was really good. And the salmon was superb. Lamprey was interesting, but it was good. I really liked it. There was dancing and the singing. It was just a wonderful, wonderful day. And I was so happy to see the health of the Indian nations now. All of them consider Clackamas County home because right there at Willamette Falls was a fishing area used by all the tribes. So it was a wonderful day. And also I'd like to thank the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission for their work on protecting salmon and lamprey habitat. But it was a great day. I sent a thank you note to the Yakima Nation for hosting it. They did a great job. Then on 16 July, I spoke at the grand opening of the Mercy Greenbrae affordable housing project in Lake Oswego.
Nice.
Their first project there. And it's 100 rooms, or 100 apartments, beautiful facility. And I'd like to thank Walsh Construction and our own Clackamas County Housing Authority for their work. And also, I'd like to thank the mayor of Lake Oswego and the city council for supporting and advocating for this project. It was really, again, a very nice day. And then I didn't go there myself because there was no official ceremony, but on 18 July, the new Canita Spa and Resort opened in Warm Springs. And this was a project of the Warm Springs Economic Development Corporation and Kirk Hanna and his people from Government Camp who put this new development together. And like I said, I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen the videos, and they did a beautiful job. So thank you, Kirk Hanna, and also the Warm Springs Economic Development Corporation for your great work there. And I think that this is something that our Clackamas County tourism needs to help promote, because only a part of Warm Springs is in Clackamas County, but we need to still consider Warm Springs as Clackamas County neighbor. So that's what I have for you today. Also, yesterday I sent a letter to the Mount Hood Cultural Center and Museum supporting their request for CERT dollars to help with funding for their new expansion up there. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'll be brief and save some of that for my updates for tomorrow when Commissioner West is present. Yeah, the first week of July, pretty well stayed busy fielding calls and dealing with some of the issues. I did manage to try to take 1 week of the 3 for personal time, and pretty much did that to some degree, but was still received a few calls and did a little bit of stuff, but I did get a break that week. Last week was a continuation of the first week of July, a lot of work, and I want to prize tomorrow, I'll prize you more about ODOT and R1 Act, things that are happening. Got some few land use inquiries dealing with, and had a few meetings, but I think we already talked yesterday a little about NCPRD, things that are clarifying a few emails that are out there circulating in letters, and, you know, we're working on that. I appreciate staff support with that. We're always learning, always trying to clarify and get the facts straight, so I think we got that tamped down. We're working on it, but I want to just do a shout out for staff for being working on that and responding to constituent questions and letters and so forth that don't seem to have all the facts, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I got a few of those too. Thank you, Paul. Well, commissioners, see no further business before this commission. We are adjourned.